Hi, everybody, and welcome to night 8 of Robert's Haunted Pajama Party. Tonight is going to be a little different than everything that we've done up to this point because I gave you a lot of haunted stories of things that I encountered in my work as a medium. And so tonight I wanted to take you, it's still kind of haunted adjacent, as it were, because I want to talk about my relationship with animals tonight. Mark had this idea, so I have to give him a little credit for this, although it pains me to do so, to talk about animals and our relationship with animals, because I think I did get a lot of questions from clients previously and some questions from people private messaging me about animals that have crossed. So I do want to talk about those this evening. So welcome again to yet another edition on the Enlightened World Network, Enlightened Living Channel. So we can talk a little bit about some of these things that we encounter, some of the things that you feel when you're maybe sensing things from spirit or have a loved pet in your home that has passed, or even we're going to talk about a story tonight about a spirit before they left and how I communicate with animals. So before we get started, again, if you would please, prayers for Matthew Delfino and for Stephen Kennedy this week. And again, we've got probably, we've got 2 more shows after tonight in this series of hauntings. But just know that I'm working on the show after that, and I'll let you know on Sunday when we're going to do the questions and answers. So if you do have questions, please feel free to submit those questions, and we will get to them. And I'll announce when that is, but probably I would imagine sometime at the end of the week or sometime next week. And we have some other things that are in the works. I think I may try and do a couple of my shows in Spanish because I do speak Spanish. And then we will probably find some other things that we're looking at doing. So just keep posted, and we'll keep you up to date because I'm enjoying this series, and it has resonated with some of you out there. And so welcome everybody from the UK and Australia, New Zealand, Canada, South America, Colombia, Chile, Mexico. So thank you all for joining us tonight. And if you're from other places, please feel free to let us know where you're watching from. We'd love to know. And if you also have ideas for future shows, the things that you'd like me to address, please feel free to mention those in the comments. And so I can look at those, review them, and maybe make some shows for some of you in the future, as far as what you have an interest in or where you'd like me to take you as far as my life as a medium. So with that said, let's get started. And actually, we have a good Pinot Noir tonight, so I don't want this to go to waste. Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
So let's start with the companions. I always work with animals and feel that they are companion spirits to us. And one of the ways I kind of want to preface this today is this is my experience with animals and animal souls. So I don't want this I'm not a theologian by any stretch of the imagination, but I do want to talk about some of the spirits and how I experience them. Other mediums may experience spirit in a different way, especially from animals, but I want to talk about my experience with them. And a lot of people have questions. Am I going to see my dog or cat or whatever type of animal it may be on the other side? And my experience is yes. And I'm going to give you some stories today that are kind of going to exemplify what those are. And, so again, this is how I work with them, how I perceive them, the messages that I get, how I work with them. And I would love to move on, but my lovely assistant, Mark, is not turning the note page I have here for me. So he's off doing something else, not making me dinner because I didn't have dinner yet. I'm just saying. So if I feel low energy,
You're faster than normal tonight. You're throwing me off.
So story 1. Again, night 10, I'll kind of show you my notes board. It's a bunch of points and outlines for myself so I don't get lost, because you can see with Mark as an assistant how I could just get off center. So the first story of the night that I do want to talk about is, I'm going to call this dog Scrubby, because I actually don't remember the dog's name, but Scrubby kind of, he was maybe Scrappy is a better name, because he had a lot of fierce energy about him. He was an older dog, And this gentleman called me and said, I'd like you to please talk to me about what it's like to put an animal down. So I don't like those. I'm a dog lover. I'm an animal lover. But I do know that animals don't sense time or sense um, soul and spirit like we do. So, we as humans come to and try to think about our legacy. We tend to think about what we've left to the community, what we've left to our family, what we mean to them, our own mortality, and what it may feel like to die, and maybe being afraid of crossing. Sometimes think that this is it, and we don't have a life after this. Obviously, my life as a medium has taught me anything. It's knowing for sure that there's something past this life, past this existence. So that does not bother me, and it shouldn't bother most of you that are watching this that are spiritually inclined. But for the atheists out there who don't believe that there's something else out there, I wouldn't be able to get the message that I do to help those here on this plane if there wasn't something else, or if there wasn't somebody giving me that information. I get that I get angelic energy. I get, people who have passed, sometimes interdimensional energy. And in this case that we're talking about tonight, animal energy. So I, again, like to consider these animals to be companion spirits, spirits that join us, that help us, that encourage us. And I'm going to give several stories tonight because I work with animals all the time. But this case in particular was one of the first cases that I had to do where someone was going to put their dog down the next day because they were suffering. And he just wanted kind of peace of mind that the dog was okay, that he was doing the right thing. And I know, I'm going to cry. I know how hard this is. We had to put our beloved dog Kai down last July. And it was probably, if not the hardest thing I ever had to do, close to the hardest thing I've ever had to do in my entire life. But I've been here a while. Putting her down, it was necessary. They wasn't going to go here. I'm going to show you a picture of Kai so you know who I'm talking about here. So if you can see Kai, I'm going to try and get it in the shot here. So this was Kai as she was here on the plane here on the physical world. And loved her to death. She was our daughter. Mark and I are a gay couple. We were too old to really adopt. And,
well, you are.
And so, this was our girl. This was going to be it, so we lavished her with love and affection and great food and took her on vacations. And this was, as close as we were going to get to cloning us in some way. And so we decided to we got message one day from the vet. We took her in. She wasn't eating. We took her in, and we were just told she has cancer. She's suffering. She's, you need to put her down. It's around her heart. It's around her lungs. She can't breathe. And it was a shock to us. So it was just, organic food and how happy she was. And she never complained. And what was funny was 6 months before this happened, I was petting her on the carpeting, and I was just petting her stomach. And Mark was watching TV, exactly seated where I am now. And I said, oh my God, she has cancer. And again, I don't get things for people that I love usually, but I knew that she had cancer. And then my mind went off, and maybe I'm just thinking about this wrong. Again, that's why I don't read for people close, because in my mind's eye, I didn't want it to be true. So I just kind of blew it off. So here we are 6 months after this vision that I have, and told from a doctor, from the vet, that she has cancer. And, and we had to put her down. And Mark was there at 5 o'clock in the evening, and they wanted to do it then. And Mark said, I can't, Robert needs to see her. And I'm glad that he didn't do it, otherwise I would have had 2 deaths that I would have had to deal with. And this was bad enough. So it was just very poignant. And so we had 18 hours with her. They kind of gave her a diuretic to drain the fluid out of her lungs a little bit so she could breathe easier and she could have a great evening with us, and just lavish her with love and affection and food, and anything she wanted was hers. And it was a lovely 18 hours, and it was the worst 18 hours of my life because time, I can't go into the story. Time stood still, and it was hard. It is still hard. Geez, sorry. Um, so let me get back to Scruffy because this was tough. And so she, um, anyway, it was very bad. As any dog owner who's had to put an animal down, it was horrible. But it was the right thing to do for her. It wasn't easy for us, but it was the right thing to do for her. And there's a whole story about this that I'll get into another time. Obviously, it's still, even after this time, it's still emotional to go through. So let me get to Scruffy because I'll take my mind and refocus me. But with Scruffy, this gentleman asked me to what he should do and how to go through that process. And obviously I went there because it's necessary for us as humans to kind of maybe work with those emotions and how to process that god-awful truth that sometimes we have to do this for animals that we love and care about so that they don't suffer. So Scruffy was very old and hadn't been able to walk and use its back legs for a couple of years. And so Scruffy, he was questioning whether or not we should actually whether he was doing the right thing. And I told him that he was, and the information coming from Scruffy was that he was a very proud animal, and he protected his owner. He was a dog that he rescued, and this dog was incredibly loyal and incredibly fierce in his protection of his companion, his human companion during this time, and he wanted to be that proud dog. And he told me while I was there, he said, "What can I do for him to make sure that he feels good?" And I said, he's got a green toy. It's his favorite toy, and it should be next to him, and he really wants this green toy. And I said, "What is this green toy?" Because it's definitely green, and it's his favorite toy. And he said, "It's a Gumby." If I don't know if wherever you are in the world or here, you may be too young to remember what a Gumby is. But a Gumby is a little green toy, little green man from late 60s, I guess, early 70s cartoon. And Gumby, and I just said, "Go get Gumby." And this gentleman was so upset what he was going to have to do. He took all of the toys and had put them away someplace, and because he didn't want to deal with looking at them after the dog passed the following day. So he had put them all away already and didn't want to look at them. It was going to be too hard for him. I said, "Get the toy. This is what he needs." And so he went and got the Gumby and brought it to his dog. And the dog just kind of put his paws around this toy. The dog knew what was happening and knew it was his time. And the dog wasn't afraid. The dog really wanted dignity. And since it couldn't have that, the dog was telling me that that the owner, that the companion, his human companion, was very afraid to sleep in the dark. And so the dog always slept with him in his bed and always closed the door at night and locked the door. And the dog told me, I didn't know that, obviously, I had never met this man before, but I said, "Look, the dog's telling me what I just told you, and he's saying that you can now sleep with the door open. He will be here to protect you every night. He's going to lay in this doorway, and just so you know where he is, and you'll be able to sleep calmly every night. And if there's ever an intruder in your house, he will wake you." And the guy kind of got taken aback, my client, by that message. And he thought about that for a while, and he thought about the character of this dog. And it was a bit of an epiphany for him on how he treated this dog and the protection that he had and the love that he had for this dog, and how this dog still in passing was going to be there to protect him. And it changed his outlook as far as this crossing was concerned. So the vet actually came to the house the next day. He actually did it a very nice way where the vet came to the house and they did it out in the backyard where the dog was comfortable and had known for about 16 years here in South Florida. So it was very, very lovely crossing. If it had to be done, it was where the dog was comfortable. Just a beautiful, beautiful way to send this dog on. But I felt at peace, and the dog that evening was at peace, and he had some lovely words for his human companion for the rest of his existence, that he would be there with him, which was wonderful. So apologize for getting a little emotional, but it's a story that resonates with me very closely. because of what I went through after, probably about 5 or 6 years after that, I had to go do this with this gentleman. But again, nothing in my work, everything in my work prepares me for more things that I have to do. And I think working with this animal is one of the first animal crossings that I had to do with a client, kind of maybe it prepared me a little bit for what I had to go through with Kai years later. So I'm thankful that I went through that, and it helped prepare me perhaps for what I went through. So I'll leave that story there. That one was hard to get out. So I'm going to go to another story with a dog, and this one is about guilt. So the first one was about how the animals may protect you still on the other side, if that was their energy, if that's what they were doing. The next one I have was from somebody who called me up on July 5th. And it was because on July 4th, he had an animal that, a little dog that was white and cute and lovely and fun-loving and relatively young. The dog had a little bit of puppy energy still left in him. But what happened on July 4th was he was having a party, and he had invited people over to his house, and he was outside kind of preparing, for like all the tables to get all of the hamburgers, hot dogs, and everything out there, the drinks, and all that sort of stuff for a celebration for July 4th. And he took the dog out with him. Just the dog would follow him all the time, and the dog just came out and followed him. And so he was in and out of the house for a couple of hours getting things ready, and then all of a sudden the neighbors started shooting off about 2:00 in the afternoon. Just started sending off loud, large fireworks, just the boomy ones, because you wouldn't be able to see them, the other ones. So they were sending off these large booming fireworks, and the dog got scared, and the dog managed to find its way behind the garage along the fence that they had back there, and there was a little gap, and this dog managed to get out behind there, although he didn't know it at the time. He was still getting ready for the party, coming out of the house, but then somewhere along the way noticed that the dog wasn't following him, so he went to go look for the dog. Couldn't find the dog anyplace. And the dog, then they start getting afraid that maybe the dog got out, but there was no way. The yard was fenced in, didn't know what was happening, was looking all over the house, couldn't find this dog, and he got frantic. They looked all over, got in the car, drove around the neighborhood, could not find this dog anywhere. So that was during the day, and never found the dog, couldn't figure out what happened to the dog, and was frantic, obviously, with a family member gone. And they had the party, were still trying to figure out from friends who were there what to do, how to do it, but figured that the dog, wherever he was, maybe got afraid or something and was huddled, underneath a car or someplace close. Obviously put up flyers, did the things necessary when the dog was gone. Couldn't find the dog, and then were called the following day on the 5th that somebody had found their dog about 1.5 miles from the house, and the dog had been killed, hit by a car. And they were distraught, just completely distraught, and didn't know what happened with this animal. So obviously, as a dog lover, I made a beeline over to the house that day, actually, to go see them, because I wanted to help find the dog. But he'd already been told that, the dog had been killed, but he wanted to know what happened. He was just frantic, and he felt guilty, and what happened? Did he do something wrong? And all of that guilt was just eating him and his partner up. It was horrible. And I know what he was feeling because, again, doing what I do, I sense and feel other people's emotions as an empath, and I couldn't let that go on, to try to alleviate his suffering and his pain in any way that I could. So I got to the house, and what had happened and what I saw happening there was when the fireworks started going off, the dog got into a fight or fright mode, fight or flight mode, I should say. And the dog was frantic. He just kind of went out of his mind, not in a crazy way, but in a little bit a crazy way, of trying to get away from what frightened him. And he couldn't make it back into the house, so he tried to get behind the garage where he felt safe, but found an opening back there that he was able to squeeze through and took off to try and get as far away from this noise that was going on across the street as possible. And this is just the mindset that the dog was in. And the dog put me in the mindset that now I'm running. And he's showing me where he's running to. And every time there was another noise someplace, he would run the opposite direction from it. And this is what he did all afternoon, the poor thing. Every time there was another boom, another crash, another something, a noise he wasn't familiar with, he would just take off in an opposite direction. And he was just trying to run away. It wasn't like he was trying to run away from his, his human companions. He was just trying to stay safe and trying to find a place to be. And his mind wouldn't let him rest. And as it got toward evening, I guess the worst part of what I saw in my vision was that he got probably about 1.5 miles from the house. And as he was running across a 4-lane street, so it's 2 lanes going one way, 2 lanes coming back the other, as he was crossing the road, he made it across 2 lanes. As he got across the lane, there was a gentleman driving a van. And I could see to this day the back of the van. It was a fish truck, and it had the name of the fish truck. And I won't say that the driver intentionally tried to hit it. He may have tried to avoid it. It's not the feeling that I get. But I will just say that when he moved the vehicle, the dog kind of went between the front tire and back tire of the white van. And then what happened after this is there was a car right behind the van. And the car, there was no time for the car to move, no time for the car to swerve. This person hit the little dog and felt horrible, stopped the car, felt what happened. I could see the entire scene that happened and the aftermath and how bad this young woman, she was 20-ish, 21, got out of the car, knew what she had done, knew that the dog had been killed from hitting the dog. And that's when they started the process of trying to find the owner. And that's where my vision stopped. So I explained all this to my client as far as what happened. They were in tears, distraught. But I had to tell them that this wasn't their fault, and they needed to understand, to bring them peace of mind, that their dog was giving me this information to make sure that they understood that they did nothing wrong. This would be something that was happening all the day, every day. The dog would follow him outside. It was just part of the normal routine, and there was nothing that he could have done to prevent what happened. And once the fireworks started, this dog just took off. It was not its right mind. Obviously, it was just frantic. And when it got that fear, it just wanted to get as far away as possible. So it wasn't the dog's fault. It wasn't the human's fault. It was just a horrible, tragic accident, and on everybody's part. Nobody tried to do anything to have this incident happen. But the dog wanted to make sure that I knew that I could alleviate any guilt that they felt, and it made them feel so much at peace that the dog wasn't hurt. It was killed on impact. There was no suffering from the part of the dog, and that made them feel better. Again, they lost their companion, but at least in the tragedy, they could find some peace, both for the animal and for the human spirit, because there was nothing that anybody could have done differently. And knowing that information brought them some peace. And I'm glad that I'm able to get this type of information to bring people peace, because it would have eaten them up. And one of the things that we do as mediums and workers in light is to bring people peace, to give them these types of messages that hopefully allow people to find that peace and serenity, to be able to move on with their lives and go on and have a peaceful, productive, lovely existence until it no longer happens to be on this plane. So it's a great story from the standpoint of forgiveness and guilt and how those things can just can cause a problem in your life, and how our animal companions sometimes want to make sure that we go on to have a happy life and don't feel that guilt associated with some of these endeavors and accidents that just happen in life. So again, a tough story, but one that I think you need to know because you may encounter these with relatives or friends or your own, that sometimes accidents happen and sometimes they're just tragic. And know that if there wasn't anything that you could do to possibly avoid this happening, you need to be able to forgive yourself. And that sometimes is the hardest thing to do. And it's actually easier to forgive others sometimes than it is to forgive yourself. So if I can kind of stress this through this terrible story, is that sometimes you just need to get rid of the guilt, move on, and try and find that peace that they needed to have. So I know some of these stories are going to be tough tonight. I apologize, but I think it does bring home some poignancy to having this companionship in our lives, because typically we outlive them, and we do have multiple companions in our lives, and we have the privilege of being able to be there when they come into our lives, and that privilege of being there when they leave, and being that strong soul and that strong spirit that we need to be for them as they make that crossing. Okay? So if you have any questions, again, feel free to submit if you have anything along there. Kai, since her passing, has been a wonderful guide for me in this endeavor, because I do get to get information from her now. And she's amazing at being able to, and again, this may be one of the reasons that she crosses, to be able to help enhance my gift to help others and others with animals. Because, I'm going to give you a bunch of random stories, quick tidbits of just the ways that she helps me. I was with one client, and she gave me an urgent message, and I was in there, and they had a brand new puppy, and Kai was telling me that this dog was an escape artist, and this dog was going to run outside through the out into the garage and run out, and the garage door was going to close on its paw and break its paw. And I told my client this. I said, look, I'm giving you messages about your husband and all those kind of things that are going on, but you need to know about your dog. This is what's going to happen. And she said, oh my God, today the dog actually managed to escape out of the house. And I said, perfect timing. This is what's going to happen. And she said, this is exactly what happened. Is the dog got out through, the door in the house from the kitchen into the garage, and then ran out to the street. They captured it, brought the dog back into the house. But I warned her, so they now put up a dog gate there so the dog won't be able to make its way out that way. So it's a way that sometimes just a cautionary tale, right? Where Kai was able to let me know how we could help protect this dog so that it didn't have what I saw as a vision happen to it. And that I was able to alert the human companions what they needed to do to make sure that they could make sure that this dog had a long, happy life. That's kind of a quick one. Another one was that sometimes animals are validations. I was with at my brother's house. My brother had never seen me do what I do. And I was up there. We had to evacuate for a hurricane a couple of years ago now, I guess. And when we evacuated, I took Kai with me up to Ohio from Florida, and was staying at their house. And I was told when I was at my brother's house, said, there's somebody sitting at the top of the stairs. Again, we'll give the story another time, but there's somebody sitting at the top of the stairs. And as I was relaying validations, this woman had died 25 years or 30 years before. I didn't know this woman, but it was related to my sister-in-law. And I said, the dog's name is Snickers. Who's Snickers? And she said that was her dog. So the dog, even 30 years later, is coming through as a validation that this is who I'm talking to, because there's no way I would have known who Snickers was. But the Snickers name came through so that they would know exactly that the person that was sitting at the top of the stairs was a validation that this is who this was, so that the messages that came through would kind of be pointed to them and would know exactly who these were from. Other things they gave me are warnings. One time I was at the gym, and the owner of the gym always brought his little dog in, And while I was on the treadmill, I'm getting a vision of this dog leaping off the bed and breaking its leg. And it was a little dog, and he had apparently a high bed. And so, I got off the treadmill when I was done, and I went to the office, and I started to pet the dog. I said, you need to watch this dog. You need to find a way, because this dog's going to break its arm. You need to take this seriously, and he didn't really know I did what I did. I said, by the way, this dog has an ear infection. It's in the right ear. And, what you have to do is, I got it. Thank you. Mark's telling me I have 30 minutes already. I got it. So sorry. So the dog was telling me that it's got an ear infection, and the ear infection was going to spread to its left ear. So I just said, hey, look, you need to take this dog in. The dog is suffering a little bit. It's got an infection in its right ear. You need to take this in. Started petting the dog. Dog saying, this dog's not uncomfortable. Dog's fine. And the dog started scratching at his ear the next day. And so he took the dog in to the vet, and the vet said, the dog has an ear infection. And it's, it's very heavy in the right ear, but it's a little bit tinged in this left one. And he took me seriously, thankfully, about the dog jumping off the bed, and put a ramp there, because he kind of believed me after that I knew what I was talking about. So it's just kind of some of the ways that animals communicate. One more quick story, I think, is that when I went to see a gentleman for a reading, and his dad kind of walked in, and in the middle of reading, and this guy was a bit of a doubter as far as mediums and what we do and what we sense and things. And I started to tell him, I didn't know this, but at the time, but he sat down and said, your wife is coming here, and she's telling me that she recently passed. And she apparently had died 2 weeks before I got to the house. And so he started to get emotional about that. And I gave him a couple of signs that she was telling me about her passing and her crossing, that made him smile and laugh, and kind of brought him back into the present, because he started to think about his wife passing. And I said, your wife is showing me that standing right next to her is a German Shepherd. I know shepherds, had a couple in my life, and I said, I know this dog. This is a shepherd. It's sitting right next to her, not on a leash or anything, but just sitting right next to her. And he just started busting out in tears, saying, I love that dog. And I'm like, this is just a way to let you know that when you see your wife again, this dog is going to be there waiting for you. So it was just kind of a lovely way to let him know that the crossing is going to be, when he gets to that point in his life, he still had some things he has to do on this plane. But when he gets to that point, his wife will be there. The dog that he loves so much on this plane will be there. And again, this is how I see them. This is how I interact with animals. And again, we're over a half an hour, and there's so many stories that I have about birds and horses and so many animals that I've interacted with, and they were just wonderful, and have been wonderful experiences to communicate with that. So, I just want you to kind of know that your animal companions, as I see them, will be there waiting for you. So do some fun, not fun things, I guess, but do pray for your animals. And if you sense your animals around the house, know that they're around. Mark saw Kai when she passed. I didn't get to see her that way. I get to see her in a different way. I get to kind of tap in to the other side and get to see her and communicate with her. So it makes the loss, well, it's still hard, obviously, in so many ways. I get the privilege of being able to experience still her soul and her life force with me on a daily basis. And so just know that they're around, and know that they will continue to bring you peace and will be there to comfort you as they did until you cross. So keep that lovely thought in your mind and close to your heart when you have to do the tough tasks that you sometimes have to do in putting an animal down or losing an animal or many animals. You have a ton of love to give. Do it for animals. Do it. Go to your local shelter, adopt an animal, give your love. Your heart's big enough to love and love again. So we gave a lot of examples of how they still protect you, and how they love you, and how they're around, and how they care for you, and it's just that unconditional love that never goes away. And it's lovely, it's wonderful, and it's not just dogs. All the stories tonight happen to be about dogs, but I do get this energy from cats and other animals as well. So if you have questions and things, it's a large topic, and there's so many examples I could give, and they're all beautiful as far as the way that they do communicate with us and continue to provide us with that love and that unconditional love when we need it. Okay, that's it for tonight. It was an emotional one. I apologize again for getting emotional. But tomorrow we're going to get back to some more hauntings, and I'll let you know. I'll put a little teaser out tomorrow afternoon and let you know what that's all about. So thank you again for joining us on the Enlightened World Network, Enlightened Living channel, and I wish you all a wonderful night. Love to you, love to your pets, and we'll see you tomorrow. Good night.